If you're new in town or just new to this whole podcast thing, you're tuning in to Law by Night, the podcast that discusses all things vampiric with no fear of breaching the Masquerade. In this episode, we continue to unravel the mysteries behind the origins, motives, and cultures of the 16 ghostly guilds in the world of darkness. This episode will focus on the Mnemoi Guild and their Mnemosynis Arcanos.
What? Are we meeting today? Are you sure, dear explorer? I could have sworn we were meant to meet tomorrow, not... Hold on, let me just check my calendar just to be absolutely certain. Oh, you're right! Oh, goodness me, I am so sorry. I totally forgot. Please don't judge me too much. I may be young at heart, but it would seem that I am just as old in mind as well as body. A shame, really, for there is still so much left to discover and discuss, and what if we don't learn the secrets of the labyrinth in my lifetime? Oh, let's not best worry about that for now. I suppose I should lecture you on what we know about one of the two remaining guilds on our list. How about we talk about the Mnemoi, whose talents regarding memories have sparked great amount of controversy. So much so, they are the most hated of individuals in Stygian society, second only to spectres. But as you will soon discover, they are anything but treacherous. Passions make up the wraith, and it is their memories that conspired before the fatal moments that define them. It is the sum of their parts, every moment of their existence bound up in a form that initially is their fresh corpus, assuming the form of their former mortal shell. Whilst there is plenty of arcana that deal with passion corpus manipulation and the control of individuals in general, Mnemosynis is the most forbidden of arcana that deals with memories. Mnemosynis can be used to obtain information or ascertain guilt, which is what earned them their once accepted and respected place as judges and healers of the wounds of loss and hardship. Before the guild's destruction, it is said that they used the seal of a balanced scale weighing one eye or one half of a bisected skull, in which pan as their symbol, something the hierarchy would later find revolting. Many Mnemoi would witness the previous minute of an individual's life and sense the intellect in another, allowing them to use the rest of their abilities. It was once believed that there was a limit to the Mnemoi's power, with many believing it was a weird synthesis of puppetry and castigate, but that turned out not to be the case, as those who were well versed in the Mnemosynis, mostly the guild wraiths of the Mnemoi Guild, can not only read memories, but remove, alter, and even implant new, false memories in its place, be it ones of the Mnemoi's creation, or the memories of another. It is an Arcanos that is one of three things, depending on the context, is either exceptionally powerful tool, or great catharsis, or a source of unimaginable pain. On the topic of catharsis, a Mnemosynis wraith has to be particularly careful during a catharsis, that sticky situation when the shadow attempts to seek control of the psyche. The Mnemoi are said to store acquired memories in their own memory palace, which is fairly identical to the Skinland equivalent versions. Unlike the Skinland equivalent, the memories are quite alien, quite literally, as they are obviously not their own. Each time a catharsis occurs, it is said that the ways of dividing their own personal memories, the mind palace, and the acquired memories grow thinner, meaning that over time, the Mnemosynis wraith may start believing their acquired memories are their own, which naturally blurs the personalities together, which is particularly traumatic, as one can imagine. It's bad enough when I remember something I did when I was 6 or 9, let alone some random fella did when they were 30, or worse, my wife at any point in our marriage. That aside, a Mnemosynis who has their abilities go wrong is in for a horrific time. Not only have they risked exposing themselves as users of a forbidden power, but they may end up revealing secrets of their own that they should have stayed hidden. You can see how many would or could become corrupt with such a power, and it is said that many did. Charon and the hierarchy were forced to outlaw them, lest they destroyed Stygia. Some Mnemori managed to hide among the monitors, as those who used Lifeweb had almost the same guild marking, while others used their abilities as little as possible so they wouldn't attract attention to themselves. Whilst this is still the case with many a guild wraith pertaining to the Mnemoi Guild, many use mirror and crystal metaphors with their teaching, which is manifested in the form of guild marks on their corpus, with no two marks exhibiting the same marks. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, one might have gemstones for teeth or fingernails, whilst some may shine like a stained glass window from the right angle or a voice that makes gemstones sing. I can bet you plenty sang songs of joy when the Mnemori were chased out by Charon and Co., corrupters of the legal system, outlawed for their abuse and self-enriching goals. Sure, some may have heard of those agendas, but that is not the Mnemoi Guild in its entirety, if at all. Remember what I said earlier on? They are so loyal to Charon's vision and cause, it makes the Skeletal Lord look like a traitor. The Mnemori predates the Stygian Empire by quite a while, possibly one of the oldest. At the very least, we at the Phoenix Institute know they clearly have some ancient Greek lineage. The Mnemori and the art of Mnemosynis is named for Mnemosyne, the guild goddess and memory and mother of the 9 muses. There is also a river in Hades that bears the name of Mnemosyne. It served as a counterpart to Lethe, the river of forgetfulness. Those who drank from Mnemosyne would remember their past lives, whilst those who drank from Lethe would forget them. The guild begins with 2 wraiths, one called Minos and one called Phaedra. Interestingly, Minos is named for Minos, king of Crete, master of Daedalus, and owner of the labyrinth that housed the Minotaur. After his death, he became a judge in Hades. He also appears in Dante's Divine Comedy, judging and assigning the circle of hell to each soul shall be sent to. It is quite likely it is the same Minos in question. Anyway, Minos had found a way to store memories in objects, which, in this case, was said to be some form of crystal, which is probably where the teachings we spoke of before originate from. Considered to be one of Charon's oldest friends, Minos was charged to refine his studies, some that were meant to have taken no less than an hour to do so. We can assume that this is the Mind Palace techniques that later guild wraiths would employ. Minos and Phaedra would then collect disciples, as instructed by Charon, to further pass on their knowledge. Minos formed the guild as a judgment and civic assistance organization. The Mnemori were originally formed as a means of recording events and phenomena in the underworld. This would manifest itself into the Mnemosynis Arcanos. As the guild grew and matured, so did their functions within the newly erected, don't laugh, Stygian Empire. They had become a respected order of teachers and law masters. Of course, as the guild numbers blossomed, so did the use of the Arcanos, which the Mnemori would act upon, stamping down on any inappropriate uses of their arts. We have found extensive evidence they would work with the partners extensively. Since wraiths fundamentally cannot trust their own personalities, given the risk of catharsis, the Mnemori were critical for everything from castigation to criminal investigation. They would also aid the Partners Guild by soothing and altering traumatic memories. That provided fodder for the shadow, abuse, or led wraiths towards oblivion, serving as the very linchpin that be the guild's downfall when they were trialed for and eventually exiled by Charon. Anyone using the Mnemosynis art is to be apprehended and sent immediately to the Soul Forges. As unfair that may sound, given what I'm about to share with you, consider for a moment a Shadow Eater Nemos or an ex-Nemosus Spectre. Now envision the horror that would bring if such a thing was left to the chance of whether they survived a harrowing. This is only part of the story, as you should already know. Charon was visited by a certain member of the Oracles Guild, which I shared with you before, and the Lady of Fate that spelled out his destruction at the hands of his shadow and Malphian, Guru, and the impending 6th Great Maelstrom. In his current state, Charon could not prevent either, but with a desperate plan to force the situation, hiding in the Skinlands and return in the vessel of an infant, a newly wraith, fit with Charon's memories, he would be strong enough to face the might of, well, whatever the underworld would throw at him. Of course, that would only work with the Mnemoni's cooperation, as they needed to store his memories far beyond the reach of the guild masters and death lords, neither of which he trusted. Now, whether this was a goal the guild actually believed was one so noble, or another mad demand from a delusional emperor, is yet to be determined by us. And so the plan was formed. Charon would spin his web of lies, claiming the Mnemoi corrupt and memory thieves that abused their power, spreading so much fear that the intention was that no one would go near or hunt them. Now, I don't need to tell you how stupid that is, as fear inspires hate, and that only increased the hunting of the guild, which was probably harmed more of Charon's memories and indeed the rest of Stygia in the process. In and around all this, Minos began to record his memories, with the Mnemoi collectively creating a memory palace that recorded the entirety of Charon's existence in the underworld. All of his experience, his powers, his secrets were locked in this structure, though some say the memory palace was an object created by Nudri. And that is as much as the history on the guilds we know about. They are understandably a very secretive bunch that don't gather in huge numbers. We don't know of any rituals or ceremonies. There is no elaborate initiation beyond the exchange or handing down of snippets of Charon's memories or apprenticeships, and certainly don't have any guild houses. Recruitment is a nightmare too, as you really have two camps of wraith to choose from. Either those who have no knowledge of understanding of the Stygian cause, or those that are totally devoted. Those that fall in the huge middle are more difficult to convert by Pietra, who deals with many of the recruits, but not impossible. The ceremony's leader tells the recruit of Mnemoni's story, their history, their secrets, and their hopes. The initiate must then repeat a section of the story of the leader's choosing verbatim. No Mnemosynis powers are used, in a nod to the oral tradition the guild came from. Failure sees the initiate return to training, while success means they have now accounted a full member of the Mnemoi Guild. The freshly recruited Menos are then sent to one of the academies, which are told are not as lavish as the name would imply, and are educated in mind palace construction and Mnemosynis, with each new recruit getting their own sponsor. Our research tells us that the time in these academies can range from anywhere between a decade to a century. Unlike the training process of other guilds, these are never short processes. After all, this is centuries worth of secrets, and anyone that wants to rush the process cannot be trusted with the secret of centuries. Once they are free, so to speak, and past their initiation, the mnemonic can do as they please, providing they maintain some form of contact with the guild or do anything they deem to be stupid. Most move about all over the place, not discriminating renegade from heretic, never staying in one place too long. Some serve as spies in the legions, waiting for the destined opportunity when the guild makes its noble return. You probably think this is extremely dangerous stuff, which totally is, but the Mnemoni know the secrets they carry and they are trained to resist torture. This is also the really simple fact that this is very difficult for the guild wraith to prove they hold said knowledge without being deemed a lunatic. Of course, they are not a guild without some semblance of structure, but the relationship they have with said structure is different to other guilds. The Mnemoi are being hunted, so it is really tyrannical in a classical sense, i.e. they are under siege and are generally distinguished more by their survival strategies than anything else. At the top, there is Minos Tyrannos himself, lord and undisputed of the Mnemoi, with Pietra, the teacher, beneath him, if only just. They carry the bulk of Charon's memories and make what decisions need to be made, whilst Pietra handles with a lot of the day-to-day activities of the guild, whilst Minos makes equipment in a lone haunt on the River of Death, waiting for Charon's return. Pietra can't do all the work herself and requires some individual eyes and ears, and these are the Wandering Ones, who do plenty of scouting across the legions, dark kingdoms, and other guilds. The Memory Pushers are wanderers too, but at a much slower pace, probably because these wraiths work with the underside of Stygian societies. Memory Pushers will set up shop, establish a clientele that trusts them, and then move on before it all comes crashing down, as each client find is blackmail material, another foot in Stygian society. They serve as the guild's face, which probably pains Minos, but it is a necessary evil. On the flip side, there are other guild wraiths that keep to themselves, just preferring silence and solitude, along with the safety that brings, only taking the odd student here and there, and helping only the occasional heretic and renegade group. These are understandably called hermits. Whilst they are probably the least intimidating of the guild wraiths, our research would suggest they actually steal the punishment of their clients and implant them subtly into the minds of others. There are the agents which, as you can hopefully surmise, are old. Ancient, you could say. They remember the glory days as what it were to moan how today's youth just don't have what it takes. Newer members tend to ignore a lot of their behaviours, especially when they serve as advisors to Minos and Phaedra and can modify the greater palace, the structure that represents what Charon's memories palace should look like, and so forth. Some agents have skill in numerous arcani, others retain contacts in the guilds and legions. In addition to these structures, it is said that these wraiths are organised even further by the ancients based on the various roles they occupied. Strickadei advocates a return to the guild's origins as historians and cartographers, covertly preserving records in case of underworld-spanning catastrophe. Stricked agents seem certain such an event is imminent, though they refuse to share specifics. Alkyonides prefer more engagement with wider wraith society, carefully providing solace and understanding as a combination of teachers and psychic healers. Some rogues among their number approach this as a business proposition, selling the memories of experiences as the ultimate addiction or a powerful weapon. The few surviving ancients who once worked with the Stygian bureaucracy now lead the Peripheans, the Mnemosynis militant arm, if they can be tamed to such a thing, hunt the underworld's most reprehensible criminals and deliver them anonymously to the legions, along with irrefutable evidence of their guild. Their work runs with the constant risk of exposure, but they also maintain the Mnemosynis' last few ties to the hierarchy. The Mnemoi Guild are sure determined to their cause, aren't they? Each of its members held on to a fragment of the memories of the mad emperor who lost his cause long ago, for it was foretold by fate. They have sacrificed everything to ensure the safety of the very people who hunt them down. It also proposes the question of what will happen to the guild when the day of reckoning comes, assuming they survive. Of course, this is all assuming that is indeed what is happening on the other side. It is also very convenient for a guild to be hated to actually have such an important role, to sell themselves as heroes last minute, don't you think? But if they have rewritten their own history to fit some motive oh so grandeur, who is to say everything and everyone else has had a similar treatment? What if everything I've presented to you is an unintentional lies? And whatever the truth may be, we know this: they are bloody good at keeping secrets. To be kept updated, follow the Law by Night VTM Twitter and Instagram pages to find out when we upload each episode. You can also find out by subscribing to the YouTube channel and clicking on the little bell, and you'll be immediately notified when the latest episode is live. Until next time, farewell.